Welcome to the Steve Stine Guitar Podcast, brought to you by guitarzoom.com. If you want to improve your guitar playing, keep listening. If you want to improve even faster, go to guitarzoom.com, where you'll find all of Steve's premium courses, masterclasses, and memberships that'll help you quickly and easily improve your playing. Now here's your host, Steve Stine. Steve, I want to get to questions, and I want to show your mind map. We've already been on here 45 minutes, and people just keep hanging with us. So how about we just keep on going, buddy?
Okay.
All right. You're awesome, dude.
Okay. So we've got bending, vibrato, and slides. And what I want you to start thinking about is how, again, there's other techniques too, but how are you going to implement those into your motion of playing? Because that's something to really remember is if you're going to learn how to do a bend, that's great, but you've got to apply it somehow logically to the motion that you make on the guitar, right? So if I was to go to, again, A minor pentatonic, and I go to the 7th fret and I bend that up, I've got to do something from there, right? So one thing that I can do is I can bring the bend back down and then continue on my journey wherever it is I'm going. So let's say I was going to go toward the ceiling. So I'm going to go back to 5, right? So I go. So that's an easy way for me to bend it up, bring it back down, and then continue on. Now, I think it was the last session that we did, we talked about string control and, making sure that your notes aren't all, the strings aren't vibrating when they shouldn't be, other strings that you're not playing. That sort of thing. Let's say I was going to go toward the floor. So I bend this up. And what I want you to notice there, what I did was I bent it up. And then without bringing the string back down, I immediately went to the 5th fret of the 2nd string. So what happens there is this string is bent up. So I've got to stop that string from making noise because I might bend it up. And when I take my hand off, it's going to start making noise. So what I do is when I bend it up, I get ready right here on the 2nd string of the 5th fret there. And what I want you to notice is with this hand, I touch that 3rd string and it kills it. So now I can leave and get ready for the next thing I'm going to do. So learning to implement these ideas into your playing motion, right? You do a slide. You got to decide where you're going to go from that. If I'm sitting on my 3rd finger here, I might go back to my 1st finger, or maybe I'll connect to the 2nd string, right? So you start thinking about what finger you're on and what you're going to do after that. And I know that's a little bit deep, but I want you to start thinking about that because maybe you've already been developing some of these techniques, but you can't really figure out how to apply them. You have to remember that there's got to be forward motion, whether it's toward the floor or toward the ceiling. When you do a technique, you've got to follow that up with some sort of motion afterwards. You might go back where you came from, or you might go into new territory, but that's how this movement works, is I intertwine the techniques that I'm showing you right now with my ability to be able to move across the fretboard.
Right. Amazing. Amazing, Steve.
Thanks.
There are lots and lots of questions, and there are people that are still just coming into this. I'm amazed. It's crazy, especially because we didn't really plan this. It's completely off the cuff. So thanks for being here with us, guys. Steve, why don't we do some questions? And by the way, if you're just now joining us, because people keep joining, please let us know your questions regarding techniques. Anything you have about techniques, specifically soloing, would be awesome. We're talking about bends. We're talking about vibrato, and we're talking about slides today. Okay. So if you have questions about that, please let us know. Post them wherever you are. We'll try to get to them as fast as we possibly can. And the other thing is, tell us why you play guitar. What does guitar mean to you, and how has it changed your life? If you feel comfortable sharing that, that would be awesome. Okay. Let's get to some questions. Are you cool with that, Steve?
Of course.
All right. Man, we have a lot of questions. So I'm just going to jump in and just start rolling with some of the ones that I tried to screenshot because these things roll past so fast. Anyway, this is a big one, Steve. I don't know how you want to handle it. I'm just going to throw it out there. We can give a quick answer or a long answer. It's completely up to you. Steve Jones says, your tone is amazing. Please briefly cover your Kemper amp and how it differs from a typical pedal board into an amp.
Well, there's a million ways to get a good tone if you can hear what you're trying to create, right? For me, the biggest thing is that I don't, I've got a pedal board sitting in my closet that I just never use. I like simple, and that's where the Kemper works for me. It's just very simple. I literally don't have any other pedals. The Kemper. The reason why I wound up getting a Kemper is not just because of the tones, although the tones are amazing. It's because I can run a delay and a reverb and a chorus or a compression or a distortion pedal or something like that, all within the Kemper. And I can control them with my, like right here, if I shut this off, right? And I've got this nice wide solo kind of delay and reverb on this particular preset for that. I like simple. I like simple when I'm on stage. I like simple when I'm in the studio. So that's why I use the Kemper, and it works really well for what I do. I get great tones for studio, like for what I'm doing right now, and I get great tones for live. So it works really well.
Thanks, Steve. Dennis says, how can I get a longer sustain on my bends? My bends tend to die out too quickly.
Well, there's a couple things you can check. From the physical side of things, you could make sure your strings are new, because if your strings are old at all and you've got any kind of dirt and stuff like that, it's going to stop them from vibrating. The next thing is make sure that you've got enough room, that your strings aren't fretting out, because if they start touching another fret, they're going to die. The other thing is make sure that your noise gate isn't too high. If you've got a noise gate on your signal and it's set pretty high, which sometimes my tones are, if they're quite heavy, I've got the noise gate quite high, and then I have to be careful because I can't do the normal things I do, because that noise gate will grab it unless I boost that signal. Okay, So that's another thing to think about. And the other thing is just the right kind of distortion. If you don't have a lot of distortion on there, or you don't have the right kind of distortion on whatever it is you're trying to do, sometimes it'll die a little bit there too. What I found is when it starts dying, if you give it some vibrato, it tends to stay alive for a while longer. Right? Now, it's not that smooth, constant sustain that I would get with a bit of feedback. Like if I turned up louder and I started getting some feedback, I could keep that thing alive forever, right? But those are just different things that you could try and fix that.
Dayton says, Dayton Fonseca says, what are some good techniques for building strength in the left hand?
Well, if your left hand is my left hand, if it's for legato, you do a lot of legato techniques. A lot of hammer-on and pull-off techniques. And we talked about this, I don't know if it was the first or the second live session we did, but we went into this in great detail. So you'd want to watch one of those, and we talk about the 20, well, we don't go into big detail on it, but we talk about using all the different finger combinations to do hammer-ons and pull-offs, that sort of thing. You want to do a lot of legato exercises. This guitar course has got a ton of that stuff in there. 30-second exercises, 60-second exercises, 20-second exercises to try and develop strength and stamina and speed in your fingers. Like this kind of stuff, I do it all the time. I sit and watch TV, and this is what I'm doing with my guitar in my hand, is doing these kind of exercises. So I'm not even picking at that point. I'm just working on these. I keep looking around, and it's out in my car, I'm sure, but I have this little thing called a shred neck that you can buy. I forget the company that makes them. Maybe the company is even called Shred Neck, but I bring that on airplanes and stuff. I just stick it in my travel case that I bring on the plane, and I just do this stuff on the plane. I'll sit and practice this stuff. So if I'm going to a clinic or a gig or something like that, that's what I bring along, and I do this sort of thing to warm up my hands.
Awesome. Francis says, how do you avoid or prevent your finger or fingernail from catching on the string about the string you're bending?
That's a good question. First of all, my fingernails are always as short as humanly possible. I'm not saying that that's what you should do. I'm saying my fingernails, I'm obsessive compulsive about many things in my world, and that is one of them, is having my fingernails incredibly short. But what you're talking about is absolutely true. So when I bend up, for instance, if I bend the second string, the third string is going to be in the way. So I have two choices. Either I wind up bending both of those strings up at the same time, or what I do, just because it's more comfortable for me, is I do this and I hook the third string on top of my finger. So it's literally sitting on top of, you can't see it, but it's literally sitting on top of my finger right now. And when I bring it back down, I'm stopping the sound, because if you listen this way, if I didn't touch it, it's going to start vibrating because it pops off the top of my finger, right? So when I come back down, I'm touching it with this hand so you don't hear that third string. But that is a problem, okay? So one thing is make sure your fingernails are short enough. And number two, whenever you do a bend, you're going to get in the way of the other strings. The question is whether or not you're just going to push them all up simultaneously, or whether or not you're going to hook and put it on the top flesh of your finger.
Awesome, Steve. Here's one from me, actually. Ken Johnson says, hey, Dan, what mic are you using? Really easy to answer that one. It's called a Blue Yeti. It's a Blue Yeti. Hopefully it sounds good. Question for you, Steve. Keenan Andrew O'Brien says, what's your laziest finger on the what's your laziest finger on the guitar action fretboard? I thought it was my pinky. Then I found out it was actually my middle finger.
Oh, mine is my third finger for sure. Yeah. My third finger, the tendons that go into your third finger are unlike the other fingers. So it has this reliancy on the other fingers to do its thing. For most people, again, there's somebody that can bend it all the way back and put their leg over their head and whatever. But for most of us, that one's the problem for a lot of us. And for me, that's no doubt it's my third finger. And that's why, again, when I practice, I do a lot of things where I utilize my third and my pinky, my third and my pinky in my sequences like I'm doing right now, where I'll just practice trying to get those warmed up. And I tell you, just a side note, the older I get, the more I have to do what I refer to as pre-practice, which isn't even a practice. It's just getting myself warmed up, getting my hands warmed up, getting my brain warmed up, all those sorts of things. There are times when I wake up in the morning and I go to play and my fingers, and it doesn't stress me out anymore, but there was a time when I was like, is there a problem? Because my fingers just would not function properly, because I know what I can do. And it's very disheartening when you wake up and your fingers don't do what you want them to do. And what I found is what I need to do is I need to do a pre-practice. I do a pre-warm-up. Then I start my regular practice and I'm good to go.
Awesome. Nelson asks, which fingers must always be used for vibrato? Which fingers must always be used for vibrato?
You can use any finger for vibrato.
Okay, yeah.
Literally any of them. Yeah, you can use any finger for vibrato for sure.
Cool. John Weeby says, Steve, do you use the same doorknob technique when doing vibrato with the pinky?
I do. But please remember, when it comes to my pinky, a lot of times if I'm using my pinky, it's because I'm down in this sort of rock and roll 3-note per string stance. Okay. So if I'm in this blues stance that I was talking about with my thumb over the top, a lot of times my pinky isn't being overly used. Now, again, remember, I'm a small human being with small hands. So when I'm playing, what you'll notice in any time I play, because it's impossible for me not to do it, if I was playing and I want to go to my pinky, you're going to see me drop. You're going to see my wrist drop. See? Mm-hmm. It's going to happen. And this is all natural over 40 years of playing guitar, right? But that's what happens. So if I drop into this stance for whatever reason, I don't have the doorknob availability anymore, right? So if I'm down like this and I'm doing a vibrato on my pinky, oftentimes I won't be doing that doorknob turn. I'll just be moving that pinky. Now, remember, I had a teacher in college once that told me this, which was just mind-blowing to me because I'd never thought of it before. But I was telling him how I hated doing vibrato, for instance, on the first string because I had to push upward. And I hated doing vibrato like this because, again, I could do it, but I didn't like the way it sounded. He's like, well, what note are you playing? I go, well, I'm playing an A. He goes, well, just go to the second string. And I was like, oh, well, that's really cool. So instead of trying to go there and do that, I just head up and do that. So there are times that even when you're doing vibrato, you might drop into a different finger or a different string for that reason to get a certain kind of effect, right? Because there's this thing called human nature. When we play, there are things that are natural for you and things that are limiting to you because of who you are and the way you're built and the way you play and all these other things. And so what you start doing is you start figuring out how to approach those things. So again, I'm not going to go crazy with this whole thing, but pinky, it all depends. It depends on where I'm coming from. But oftentimes with the pinky, if I'm going to do a vibrato, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that rock and roll blues stance.
If you're enjoying this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, go to guitarzoom.com and consider becoming a premium member. There are 3 memberships to choose from. VIP, which gives you instant access to a library of short but powerful courses as well as new bite-sized lessons each month. There's also Play Songs that gives you step-by-step lessons so you can learn to play your favorite songs fast. And finally, there's Masterclass, university-level training on everything from soloing to music theory, from blues to home recording. For more info about these memberships and all the premium courses available to you, go to guitarzoom.com. Now back to the podcast. Guys, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. We're bumping up on about an hour and people are still hanging with us, Steve. In fact, the numbers are just... to just keep going up. I'm just blowing my brain. It's like, what? Completely unplanned, guys. We just decided to do this for you. In fact, one of the comments was, sorry, I'm late. I thought the 5th one was the last one. And what he's referring to is Steve and I did 5 of these workshops for you on technique. They're all available for you on the YouTube Guitar Zoom channel. Just go to YouTube, type Guitar Zoom, click the channel and click playlist, and you'll see essential techniques, all of them right there for you. Another gentleman said, thank you for the podcast. I love it, which is awesome. I want to let you guys know that Steve has a podcast. It's called the Steve Stine Guitar Podcast, if you'd like to check that out. Also, I'm going to be sharing with you, if you guys are interested, Steve's mind map of how he created the Essential Techniques course and show you like how his brain works, kind of like a behind the scenes look into Steve Stine's brain. I did this completely on the fly, unbeknownst to Steve on the first session, and he was cool with it. Hopefully he'll be cool with it again today, Steve. And if you guys are interested in seeing that mind map, I'm just curious, just say yes or something like that. Yes, we want to see how Steve's brain works or something, just to kind of let me know, to gauge the interest in you guys seeing that. Otherwise, I won't waste your time with it. And so, but I do want to get to some more questions if you're up for that, Steve.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So this comes from David Lloyd, who says he had a couple things. He said, your last broadcast made me buy the Essential Techniques course and 2 other courses. Well, thank you, David. Appreciate your patronage very, very much. He goes on to say, when you bend, he's talking to you, Steve. He says, when you bend, you always have your left thumb up or wrapped like most guitarists, but you generally play with the thumb out of sight like a classical guitarist. Why? And how should a beginner hold their left thumb?
That's exactly what I just said in the last question. The reason is because when I get into this stuff, if I turn my wrist at all, or if I'm going to use my pinky, I have to put my wrist down. My hand is small. So I can't play in this rock blues, like I can't play in this position and do this. You see? So, and again, I don't know if that's just me. I mean, you got to have pretty big hands to be able to hook up here and still be able to do 3-note per string patterns and things like that. So that's why that's happening is, again, it's just a natural motion that happens with my hand depending on what it is I'm trying to do. So sometimes when I do vibrato, I'll do it with the thumb over the top. Sometimes it's back like this, but that's why. So you can call it a classical approach by putting the thumb behind here. But for me, it really isn't. It has to do with the limitations I have with my availability of being able to move my hand. So, when I was growing up, everything that I listened to was all based off 3-note per string patterns or more. And having small hands, it was, important for me to get used to being able to, be able to move my hand and still keep that distance. So if I do this, there's no way I could even do that. So
here's one from a YouTuber, Steve. It says, Steve, you appear to have small hands, yet you play amazing. He just disappeared. Hang on a second. I
It says you have
screenshotted it.
small hands, yet you play amazing and fluently. How do you overcome playing with small hands?
Yes. Thank you.
I don't, to be honest with you, I don't even think of it that way. It's just playing, you know? I mean, most of my friends weren't always really, really, really tall basketball player style friends that had big hands or something like that. I think it's just, you just get comfortable with doing what you do the way that you do it, you know?
Right.
Because I'm sure somebody with really big hands has to do something completely different. Like I've taught students before with really big hands when they play, and they have a really hard time like making a G or something. Like their hand is all the way down here trying to play. And I'm not sure that that's beneficial. I'm not sure that that's even better than having small hands. So I think we all have our situations we have to deal with to make it work. You just get comfortable with it. And that's why the more you play, the more you practice, the more you do real things, not just playing a scale or playing a lick or playing an exercise or something like that, but you actually apply these things to songs and things like that. You start figuring out where the guitar neck needs to be, where your wrist needs to be, you know, when you play certain things. If I'm playing, I'm here, right? But if I'm playing, you know, some sort of now I'm here. And I'm not conscious of it. It's just over time, that's what's happened because that's how I deal with my availability to reach. Now, there's no doubt that because I've got smaller hands, I've always been attracted to thinner guitar necks because they feel better for me when I play. Having a chunky guitar neck feels very, very awkward to me, where somebody else is going to go, man, that feels perfect to me. That's another thing, is finding the right guitar strings, finding the right guitar neck, finding the right guitar in general, finding the right tone, right? All those things are a whole nother ball game.
Yeah, guys, this is so cool that you've just shown up and to hang out with us again for another workshop. This was completely off the cuff. And today we're talking about techniques. We're talking about 3 critical techniques: soloing, vibrato, and bends. We've been going for about an hour now. I do want to read some awesome comments we've gotten. One of the questions that Steve and I are just fascinated with hearing from you, or one of the things we love to ask and then hear from you, is this: why do you play guitar? What does it mean to you? And how has it changed your life? And I'd just like to read a few of these to everybody here. Like, where to start here? As Philip Ridgway says, as a 12-year-old kid, I was very shy. I learned to play guitar, self-taught, joined a band, got up on stage, and eventually got over my shyness because of playing guitar. I was a bass player first, he says. Another person says, I started playing when I was 14. Not only is guitar playing a creative and emotional outlet, it's given me many friendships and opened my eyes to discovering and understanding new music. Juan Cañon says, guitar cures depression and makes you feel free and powerful. Another person says, this person's name is Dis Albavets, says it's guitar was not my first choice. I wanted to be a drummer. Guitar has always been a challenge for me, so it has affected my life as hard work pays off eventually. That's a great testimony to the fact that working hard and then, like, hey, you went down this one path of wanting to be a drummer, realized that really didn't have the skills to do it or whatever the situation was, and then pivoted to guitar and then found his kind of niche there. J.R. Donovan says, it's a great escape from the day-to-day madness. Amen to that, brother. Check out this one, Steve. Dollkeeper Gmail. This person's name or their handle. I caught my wife's eye over 40 years ago playing guitar at a party. That sort of changed my life. Love it. And Jeff Sanders says, for me, playing guitar is a form of expression that lends style, emotion, and context to words and songs. The right combination has the power to change people. Stefan Zinn says, these workshops are great. Makes me feel kind of silly for buying the course. So let me answer that real quick. We do try to give as much as we possibly can. By the way, Steve, can you make me not big? I feel weird. I'm not used to seeing myself like that. I need my friend over there on the side, equal partners. I do want to show you guys a couple of resources. One, Steve and I try to make workshops, and Steve does 99% of everything in terms of creating content for you guys. We try to make things that are going to be helpful for you and you're going to benefit from, even if you decide not to become a GuitarZoom member. So what we want to do is we want to give our best stuff. And then, hey, if you're serious enough that you want to invest and get the full course or join a membership, great. If not, okay. Either way, Steve and I just have this philosophy of this kind of whole nirvana thing. Like you give and then you receive. And we've been doing that for over, well, almost 15 years now. And it seems to work out pretty good. And it's in absolute gratitude to you guys that we're able to do what we do. So I do want to share with you the mind map. It seems like people are interested in that. And then we'll wrap this up because we've been going for about an hour or so here, guys. Just want to mention everything we talked about today is the 3 critical techniques you need for soloing: bends, vibrato, and and slides. Didn't have my cue cards in front of me. Got off track. And all of this is part of Steve's new course. It's called Essential Techniques. It's available right now at guitarzoom.com for an introductory price. The price will go up soon. And there's some awesome bonuses, which you will get. I do want to show you guys this. So if I can, this is basically the way that Steve's brain works. This is behind the scene. Steve sits down and he uses some type of mind mapping software. This is a new one, Steve. I haven't seen this. But this is how he, I'm just going to zoom out. You can see all the branches on this thing. And then I'm going to zoom in and show you kind of the stuff that we were talking about today. This is everything here. And then if you zoom in, you'll see that the course starts out in an introductory discussion. There is a section on setup and your amplifier, and then chords, open chords, power chords, bar chords. And you can see the detail that he goes through on each one. Just on the open chords, he talks about bouncing and a lift and shift technique. And I can tell you that those two techniques alone, if you're having a problem changing chords quickly and easily and eliminating dead notes, that section right there is worth probably the entire price of the course, because that will be a total game changer for you. So that's another thing I love about this type of course is you don't have to go like the theory classes and those kinds of things. You really need to start at the beginning and go straight through. Not so with the Essential Techniques course. You can jump in any problem area that you're having and just attack that one particular technique and then move on to something else. There's a whole section on rhythm and strumming, which is a whole workshop on that as well. Just for the sake of time, Steve, I'm not going to walk through every one of these, but I did want to show you guys the things that are related to today that we talked about: vibrato, bends, and slides. I'm going to show you and zoom in here just a second. The vibrato, standard versus classic, how to do it, whammy bar vibrato. And again, if you're reading some of these, you're like, this doesn't make a lot of sense. This is because Steve is just dumping all this in here. And once he gets it kind of organized, then he goes and teaches it. So obviously, if there's some terminology in here, you're like, that doesn't make sense, or I don't know what that means. It's because this is Steve's personal kind of mind map that he created. Just on bending, check it out. Whole, half, 3-fret bends, blues bends, unison bends, harmony bends, pre or ghost bends, double pumps, siren bends, bend sliding, bend pull-offs. There's a whole section of this course that's just on bending. Hand synchronization, here's slides, all different sliding techniques. And then, of course, arpeggios. There's a whole section on arpeggios, string skipping, playing octaves, 2-hand tapping, harmonics. We did have some questions about harmonics, natural and artificial. One person said that harmonics are the bane of his existence. That made me laugh. Dynamic tools, guitar tones, sound effects, finger picking, hybrid picking, etc. Guys, you get the picture. This thing is 6.5 hours long. It's called Essential Techniques. It's available right now. Steve's brand new course, never before seen, at guitarzoom.com at the introductory price, which ends soon, as well as some cool bonuses. One of those bonuses is called Chord Chasing Mastery, which is a course we released a couple of years ago. Smash hit. And you get that course free when you decide to invest in Essential Techniques. Okay, my friend, we've done some questions. We've shown the mind map. We have covered quite a bit in this particular workshop. Where do you want to go from here, buddy?
That's what I had for today.
All right. Sounds good enough to me. It's Friday afternoon or Friday night where a lot of folks are. So hopefully you're having a beer, and it's probably about time for, for us to get off here and go have one at some point. Although Steve gave up alcohol, apparently. He's a teetotaler now. That's great, man.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. You're looking good. You're looking good and healthy over there, brother. All right, guys. Thank you again for being here. Remember that the last day for the introductory price on Essential Techniques is coming up. So don't kick yourself, because we will make it available in the shop. You'll still be able to purchase it, of course. You just won't be able to get the introductory price. Again, if you're interested, it's at guitarzoom.com. The course is called Essential Techniques. And I can't thank you enough, Steve, for taking your time out and hanging out and helping people. And I can't thank all of you enough for being here and supporting us and Steve and GuitarZoom. The reason we're able to do this is because of your support. So thanks again. Stay positive and keep on picking.
That's right. Yeah, that's the most important thing is you got to stay positive and keep moving forward.
Absolutely. All right, brother. Having a great weekend. See you later.
Yeah, everybody take care. Let's have a great weekend. And Dan, I'll talk to you soon. Okay, buddy?
All right. Bye, guys. Have a great weekend.
Next time on the Steve Stine Guitar Podcast. So let's go ahead and get started here. Again, I don't want to take a lot of your time, but I just want to give you something to think about a little bit. So one of the most important things to learn how to do is, you learn how to play licks, or you learn a specified idea that, is going to be really powerful and awesome when you play it. Hey, Brian, watching from the dental office. And so what we want to do is learn how to meander in between these really great ideas that you have. So maybe you've been working on a particular lick that you really love, and you want to keep going. Hey, everybody, Dancing Flames is here. We got all kinds of people. This is awesome. Jill from London. Mike is here. Hey, Mike. Demetrio from Calgary. This is great. Okay, so what I want you to think about is, I'm going to call it plotting points, is what I call it a lot, is when you've got some ideas, maybe you're playing a cover song and there's some parts of the solo that you want to play, or you've written your own solo for whatever reason, an original song or a cover tune or whatever it might be. And hey, everybody. Hey, Armando. Hey, William. Awesome. So you've got these parts that you want to try and connect. What we do in between those parts is what I refer to as meandering, which is really just our availability of being able to move around the fretboard. That's what we're looking for. Hey, Steve Stine here from guitarzoom.com, and thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, can I ask you a favor? Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Your feedback means more to me than you'll ever know. And be sure to check out my YouTube channels, where you'll find over 1,000 videos to help you with your guitar playing. Thanks again for listening. Stay positive, keep playing, and keep having fun.
If you'd like some help with your guitar playing but you're not sure how to get started, go to guitarzoom.com and look for the Help Me Choose survey. By answering a few simple questions, you'll get Steve's personal recommendation of the perfect course for you. All this and more is available for you at guitarzoom.com.